Welcome back to the Screened Film Club. Today we continue with part 2 of the most influential horror movies of the 1970s. If you missed part 1, you can click here to be up to date. Last time, we focused on movies that were from intersecting subgenres like the slasher and giallo. For today's video, we'll be talking about 3 different movies that further expand the horror subgenre they exist in. Even though their approach to scaring viewers varies, they've managed to stand the test of time and have many sequels or remakes or movies inspired by them, throwing back to the originals. And by the way, today's video is kindly sponsored by Magic Spoon, but more on that later. The first movie on this list doesn't really fit the horror stereotype. It's completely different from the movies mentioned in the previous video because there's no gore, no elaborate kills, no jump scares. Instead, most of the film is in broad daylight, and you wouldn't be wrong for mistaking it for a musical. It's a cult classic that defined the folk horror subgenre, and has given us disconcerting visuals that still freak us out to this day. The Wicker Man.
Burnt to death in a huge sacrificial bonfire.
Dear God in heaven, even these people can't be that mad.
We follow Sergeant Howie as he investigates the disappearance of a young girl in the remote Scottish island of Summerisle. Initially, it seems like he's being gaslighted by everyone as they give him the runaround when he inquires about the missing girl. As his investigation goes deeper, he is convinced that the girl is about to be sacrificed.
I've already told
In the name of God, woman, what kind of mother are you that can stand by and see your own child slaughtered?
This is a movie that goes against what you would normally expect to happen. The hero is a man of faith, led by his convictions, and would pass as the epitome of a faithful Christian. But he's an unlikable character because he constantly belittles the islanders due to their different beliefs and customs.
We don't commit murder up here. We're a deeply religious people.
With ruined churches, no ministers, no priests, and children dancing naked.
They, on the other hand, aren't overtly evil, and neither is the leader, Lord Summerisle. They come off more as misunderstood since their worldview is so different from Howie's. The sergeant's sense of right and wrong, his virtues, which would normally be celebrated, are what bring his end. Summerisle exploits Howie's faith. He was chosen and manipulated from the start, like a mouse led through a maze. The Wicker Man gives us an ending where the protagonist is outsmarted and defeated. Other than the movie's twist, its horror comes from the weirdness, the clash of ideologies, the unsettling and uncanny moments disguised as mundane. Before we continue, let's segue into today's sponsor, Magic Spoon. So I've been trying to be more mindful of what I eat and reduce the amount of sugar I take in. And I've really been liking Magic Spoon because they offer the right middle ground of the cereal I would have enjoyed as a child, but with the health benefits I'm looking for as an adult. They have all kinds of flavors you can try, like cinnamon, peanut butter, frosted. But the one that I keep going back to is the dark and chocolatey cocoa. Magic Spoon has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. Only 140 calories per serving. They're also keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. So check out Magic Spoon for yourself. Click the link below to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use the promo code SCREENED at checkout to get $5 off any order. Or go to magicspoon.com/screened. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So click the link below and use the code SCREENED for $5 off. Or go to magicspoon.com/screened to save $5 today. And now back to the show.
How old are you?
12.
Is there someone inside you?
Sometimes.
The following film is another one that deals with faith, but with a supernatural entity as the main antagonist. It's known as one of the scariest movies ever made, The Exorcist. 12-year-old Reagan is changing in a way that doesn't seem normal. Her mother has her see doctors, but in the end, they don't know what's wrong. Even though she's not religious, she turns to a priest in the hopes that he can help Reagan.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
You'd like that?
Intensely.
This is one of those movies whose reputation precedes it. As a kid, I always heard about how shocking and scary the movie was. The behind-the-scenes stories about Linda Blair sustaining a vertebral fracture due to a mechanical mistake, or debunked rumors of real possessions, or accounts of people having fainted when watching the movie. It all gave The Exorcist a near mythical standing in my mind, way before I ever watched it. Plus, coming from a very religious family, I was often discouraged from watching the movie. When I finally did watch it for the first time, I realized that the shocking elements weren't the main focus. Sure, the effects and the scares looked great. There were many disturbing moments. But the movie at its core is a family drama, and it's about a crisis of faith. Being loosely based on real occurrences, The Exorcist has a very grounded approach to the investigation of what is affecting Regan. Its realism is in stark contrast to the demonic outbursts, making them all the more impactful. I knew that this needed to be something more than just another horror film. This had to be a realistic film about inexplicable events. It's interesting how this movie has affected the collective unconscious. When we think of exorcisms or possessions, at least here in the West, what we imagine almost always goes back to what The Exorcist created. Although they really hit their stride in the 80s, special effects started becoming more refined and believable in the 70s, giving movies that extra something to sell the creepy or scary factor. David Cronenberg began perfecting his own brand of body horror. Movies depicting extraterrestrials were more visually complex than before. The effects still hold up for the most part. Invasion of the Body Snatchers gave us disturbingly well done transformations concerning aliens that took the shape of humans in their bid to take over the world. But the one extraterrestrial movie that I believe gave us the best visuals concerning an alien creature is Alien. The crew of the Nostromo investigates a distress call on their way home. One of the crew members comes back unconscious with a creature wrapped around his face.
What the hell is that?
From then on, the creature evolves into something that hunts the crew. The alien, even in its initial stage, is disturbing. Its blood is corrosive. If removed from the host dies. Then we have the iconic chestburster scene, again showing us the vicious and intrusive quality of the creature. It grows into a dangerous monster we can't really observe well because it's usually in the shadows, slithering away, hunting the crew in the cramped dark ship one by one. In addition to the claustrophobic feeling the movie evokes, it also touches on cosmic horror because it deals with the fear of the unknown. No one knows what made the creature, how it survives, what its final form is, or even what it wants. They just stumbled into a situation that they have no control over. I can safely say that Alien is my favorite 70s horror movie. It's a film whose story has often been replicated, imitated, but rarely surpassed. After so many years, it is still the standard for space horror. It's a simple premise, but executed with the perfect balance of practical effects, creature design, acting, action, and dread. Alien is the type of movie I can rewatch anytime and just enjoy the ride. Horror films have been around since the beginning of cinema, and each one leads to another, so they continue to morph and change depending on society. None of this is new. There are just new ways of telling stories. There's a stark difference when comparing movies from the 60s to the 70s. It's as noticeable as the switch from standard definition to HD, but it is important to note how thematically different the movies became as well. It's like films were living beings, growing up, now permitted to move more and be less static, allowed to smoke, curse, have sex, be less preoccupied with pleasing traditional audiences. 70s horror was a place where the genre could finally stretch its legs and explore its surroundings. And then came the 80s, where they started to run like hell. But that's for next time.